South Korean military says 350 waste balloons detected. Part of Kenya's parliament on fire. WHO calls for urgent action on highly dangerous Mpox strain. Peru to stop labeling transgender people as mentally ill. Finland to offer bird flu vaccinations to at-risk residents. Chinese lunar probe returns to Earth.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Thursday, June 27th, and here are your top stories. South Korea spotted another 350 North Korean balloons presumed to be carrying waste on Monday, igniting a tit-for-tat exchange as tensions on the Korean peninsula continue to heighten. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said a suspected balloon was seen flying in northern Gyeonggi province, which borders Seoul, around 9 p.m. local time. About 100 of the balloons fell inside South Korean regions, most of which were found north of Gyeonggi province and the capital Seoul, with no hazardous substances found so far.
Seoul's metropolitan government later sent out a push notification alerting the city that a North Korean balloon had entered the sky over Seoul, advising citizens to refrain from touching downed balloons and to report any sightings to authorities. The South Korean military has warned it could restart loudspeaker propaganda broadcasts at the border, which it had paused for the last few years, adding that whether Seoul resumes the loudspeakers is up to North Korea's actions. North Korea has sent over 1,000 balloons toward the south since May, which it calls reprisals for South Korean activists flying leaflets containing materials critical of the regime of its leader Kim Jong-un. On Thursday, a South Korean advocacy group flew 20 large balloons carrying thousands of anti-North Korean propaganda leaflets and USB sticks with South Korean entertainment toward North Korea.
Part of Kenya's parliament building was on fire Tuesday as thousands of protesters against the new finance bill entered and legislators fled, in the most direct assault on the government in decades. Journalists saw at least 3 bodies outside the complex where police had opened fire. The protesters demanded that legislators vote against a controversial bill imposing new taxes on a country where frustrations over the high cost of living have simmered for years. The protesters outmaneuvered police to enter parliament shortly after legislators passed the bill. Lawmakers fled through a tunnel, but protesters allowed opposition legislators who voted against the bill to walk out of the besieged building.
The office of the Nairobi governor, a member of the ruling party, was also on fire. The office is located near Parliament. Police water cannons were used to extinguish the fire. Protesters could be heard shouting, "We're coming for every politician." Police officers fired live ammunition and threw tear gas canisters at protesters who sought treatment at a medical tent set up at a church near the Parliament complex. The Kenya Human Rights Commission shared a video of officers shooting at protesters and said they would be held accountable. President William Ruto was outside the capital attending an African Union retreat. On Sunday, he said he was proud of the young people who had come out to exercise their democratic duty and would engage the youth on their concerns.
The World Health Organization said on Tuesday that the spread of Mpox in Africa needs to be addressed urgently, as scientists warned of a dangerous strain in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Chris Casita, the doctor in charge of operations in the country's Mpox control program, said this year roughly 8,600 Mpox cases and 410 deaths have been reported in Congo. Mpox is a viral infection that spreads through close contact, causing flu-like symptoms and pus-filled lesions. Most cases are mild, but it can be fatal. Vaccines and treatments were used to combat the global outbreak, but they are not available in Congo.
A different, less severe form of the virus, clade IIB, spread globally in 2022, largely through sexual contact among men and men. This prompted the WHO to declare a public health emergency, although that has ended, but the disease remained a health threat. 2 people died in South Africa this month of this form of the virus after a handful of cases were diagnosed. In South Kivu, Adahemuka and other researchers said the new strain was spreading partly by sexual contact among men and women, and particularly among sex workers. He said other close contact routes needed study, with evidence of transmission at school and from caregiver to child. The disease also seemed to be causing miscarriages among pregnant women as well as a longer-term rash and other lingering symptoms.
The country's health ministry announced on Tuesday that Peru will stop listing individuals who identify as transgender, among others, as suffering from mental disorders, following a backlash to the move that critics derided as unnecessary and discriminatory. The decision comes after hundreds of protesters took to the streets of the capital Lima last month to demand the scrapping of a new law that described those who identify as transgender, along with cross-dressers and those with gender identity disorders, as mentally ill and eligible for health services via both public and private providers.
Opponents of the law argued that the ministry's update of the country's PEAS health regulations was unnecessary, since existing rules already allowed for universal access to mental health services. In its Tuesday statement, the ministry said it will no longer refer to individuals as suffering from any disorder, but instead will use the term gender discordance for purposes of mental and behavioral health classifications eligible for care. The ministry also noted it will refrain from using other terms that rights groups have slammed as prejudiced, while emphasizing its respect for the dignity of the person and their free actions within the framework of human rights that provide health services for their benefit.
Health authorities said on Tuesday that Finland plans to offer preemptive bird flu vaccination as soon as next week to some workers with exposure to animals, making it the first country in the world to do so. The Nordic country has bought vaccines for 10,000 people, each consisting of 2 injections, as part of a joint EU procurement of up to 40 million doses for 50 nations from manufacturer CSL Seqirus. The Australian company said Finland will be the first country to roll out the vaccine. Finland has not detected the virus in humans.
The H5N1 strain of bird flu has killed or caused the culling of hundreds of millions of poultry globally in recent years and has increasingly been spreading to mammals, including cows in the United States, and in some cases, also to humans. Widespread outbreaks of bird flu among mink and foxes at Finland's mostly open-air fur farms led to the culling of some 485,000 animals last year to prevent the virus from spreading among animals and to humans. Vaccinations are likely to start as early as next week in at least some parts of Finland. Finland has procured vaccines for people it deems at risk, such as workers at fur and poultry farms, lab technicians handling bird flu samples, and veterinarians working as animal control officers in regions with fur farms.
In a global first, China's Chang'e 6 probe returned to Earth on Tuesday with rock and soil samples from the Little Explorer far side of the Moon. The probe landed in the Inner Mongolia region of northern China on Tuesday afternoon local time. While past US and Soviet missions have collected samples from the Moon's near side, the Chinese mission was the first to collect samples from the far side. Chinese scientists anticipate that the samples will include 2.5-million-year-old volcanic rock and other material that scientists hope will answer questions about the differences between the Moon's 2 sides.
The near side of the Moon is what is seen from Earth, while the far side always faces outer space. Missions to the far side are challenging and risky because mission controllers on Earth have no way of directly contacting a spacecraft in that region. Instead, they must send signals through a satellite that orbits the Moon. A Chinese satellite has been in lunar orbit since March and relayed information to the spacecraft on the lunar surface. Scientists have long been fascinated by the parts of the Moon that permanently face away from our planet. Samples from the far side could provide evidence of previously unstudied geological eras in the Moon's history, which could help researchers piece together how the solar system formed. Scientists also hope the sample material bears traces of meteorite strikes from the Moon's past.
The answer for yesterday was C, ubiquitous. She's one of the wealthiest, most ubiquitous media personalities around. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of South Korean military says 350 waste balloons detected. Number 1, presume. 推定, 假定. 12 passengers are missing, presumed dead. Number 2, hazardous. 有危险的, 有害的. It would be hazardous to invest so much. Number 3, propaganda. 政治组织的宣传. The front adopted an aggressive propaganda campaign against its rivals. Next, we have a multiple-choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune in to Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.